Forgiveness. That's been a hot topic in animation recently. Forgiving your enemies, not forgiving your enemies, deserving forgiveness, not deserving forgiveness. It's one thing to forgive someone for stealing a stick of gum, I mean, that's a pretty low-stakes situation, but actions that prove to be deeply traumatic to the affected person, that's where conversations tend to get divisive. To forgive or not to forgive, that really is the question. Steven Universe was all about forgiveness, but kind of fumbled towards the end there in understanding who should be forgiven and arguably who has the right to do the forgiving. And then there's BoJack Horseman, which continually reminds us that it's okay not to forgive, even if the person says they're sorry. There's only one piece of media, though, that has ever truly captured the real essence of forgiveness for me, and that is The Legend of Vox Machina. Now, for any Critical Role fans out there who watched the 7 years worth of content before the animated show came out, let me come clean. I have not seen the original campaign. I've seen bits, just recently started from episode 1, but I have not yet seen how they handled the Briarwood arc in the podcast. All of this analysis is entirely based on the animated show, so try to keep that in mind going forward. Also, no spoilers in the comments, please. I love this series so much. I don't want this ruined for me. And for anyone who just clicked on this out of curiosity and doesn't know what I'm talking about, first of all, go watch the show. It's really good. And second, meet Percy. Or as he might prefer to be called,
Lord Percival Frederickstein von Musil-Kolosky De Rolo III.
He was once part of a noble family, the De Rolos, the keepers of Whitestone, until one day they were slaughtered by a couple called Lord and Lady Briarwood. Percy not only lost his entire family, but suffered horrible torture at the hands of the Briarwoods and their lackeys, before eventually escaping. Besides being known as
Lord Percival Frederickstein von Musil-Kolosky De Rolo III.
There is one other thing he would probably like to be known as.
I am vengeance for the De Rolos.
Percy is vengeance incarnate. Even his class, Gunslinger, was homebrewed all in service of his revenge narrative. Percy was the one who introduced guns to the world of Iman, crafting the first as a perfect tool to hunt the people who wronged him. How did he know how to build it? Don't worry about it, it's fine, I'm sure that won't come up. It's all good, it's all fine. Beyond all this, Percy seems pretty miserable most of the time. He doesn't seem to like or respect any of the people he travels with.
Percy barely wants to be seen with us in public.
And only ever seems happy when he can go through the motions of his noble past.
Finally, a proper evening of protocol and civilized conversation. I shall brief them on royal etiquette and manners. You have my word, nothing will go wrong. This is fantastic. Diplomats are here from all over Taldori. Fort Daxio, Kaimar, Westrun, even
Whitestone!
Oh, no, wrong!
To me, this reads as an inability to ground himself in the present. He wants to return to the past, but can't. He recognizes that the Briarwoods are the reason his comfortable, happy life was snatched away, and takes that to mean that the only way to right this wrong is to erase them. And possibly...
What are those scribbles for?
The monsters I hunt. Professor Anders, Anna Ripley, the Briarwoods, and until about an hour ago, Kyrian Stonefell.
Hold up, that's 5 names. Who's the 6th barrel for?
Even himself. He is disinterested in the present and sees no future other than one where he has utterly destroyed every last person who played their part in his suffering. I'm sure you've guessed where this is going. This is a video about forgiveness, after all. What is it about the Briarwoods that we're not seeing? What compelled them to do all this? Do they ultimately deserve Percy's forgiveness? We can tell from Minute 1 that Delilah and Silas Briarwood adore each other. They're inseparable and deeply love one another. However, there was a time when all of that could have been ripped away. Silas was once very sick, with no chance of getting better. So in her desperation, Delilah made a bargain with a being known as the Whispered One, reviving Silas by turning him into a vampire. In fact, the only reason they took over Whitestone to begin with was due to the city being built on top of the ziggurat. Their whole plan being a long, elaborate scheme to provide the Whispered One with a blood sacrifice and... Hold on. that can't be right. I mean, you know, saving Silas, sure, that makes sense, but all the murdering and the torture and the murdering and the joy on their faces, the tree, the children... my god. That's horrible. They're horrible. They're irredeemable monsters.
What took you so long, idiot?
There is no redemption for these two. No way they could possibly make up for what they did, and no sign that they even feel slight remorse. So, what's the point? Why should Percy forgive? No one else in the main cast seems to think he should. Sure, he's getting more and more vicious with each kill, and the black smoke is concerning, but what is so bad about Percy getting his revenge? What is there to lose? As it turns out, everything. Let's talk about Orthax. So, you remember Percy's gun. Turns out the method for building it came to him in a dream, and that dream was a vision shown to him by a demon. The demon grows stronger with every kill. That's the bargain. Percy gets his revenge, Orthax is fed, they both sate their bloodlust. But it's never going to be enough. Orthax needs Percy to keep killing, and so takes more and more control away from him, consuming him. Once everyone else is dead and gone, once only Lady Briarwood remains, that's the final tipping point. If Percy kills her, if he gets what he wants, there will be no Percy anymore. Only Orthax. A tiny cynical part of me thought that this was a little cheap when I first watched this show. Like, oh yeah, okay, just introduce a demon as an excuse for why Percy can't kill the obviously evil monster who took his whole life away. But then the part of me with a degree in English literature smacked the cynical part of me and told it to shut the fuck up because this is genius. In a literal sense, yes, Orthax is just a demon taking advantage of Percy's grief. But in a more symbolic way, I see Orthax as a demonstration of what happens if we let our trauma and abuse define us. Percy begins turning his gun on the people that love him, the people that want nothing more than to help him.
You're going to shoot me too?
If we must.
His view of the world has been so warped that he can only see other people as his enemies, as potential avenues for further pain, and so he lashes out against them. The Briarwoods can't hurt him anymore, so why is he still hurting? Why is he still afraid? It must be because it isn't over. Or perhaps because he can't accept that it's over. If he lets his guard down, that means he's vulnerable. If he ever takes his finger off the trigger, he's in danger. So he has to keep firing, until he's the only one left. And then...
Don't do it! Percy, you can't!
I don't know what else to do!
Darling, take off the mask. Take off the mask.
Something changed, though, over the course of this arc. He found it in himself to smile, to laugh, to stop his one-track mind and slow down so he could listen to and comfort a friend who was also hurting.
What?
Yeah, my Armande. I don't get to go home until I complete it and prove myself worthy. Which might not happen, so...
I didn't know that.
I'm just saying, I know you think you're alone, that we don't know what you're going through. But you don't have to be.
I appreciate that, Keyleth. Truly, and for the record, I think you're damn worthy.
He learned he wasn't the only victim in the world, let alone the only victim of the Briarwoods. He found that he had one living family member remaining, his sister Cassandra. When he built the pepper box, his rage and hatred was the only thing he had to live for, but now he wasn't alone in the world. He had a family again, and he had an identity outside of his vengeance. In the end, despite all she did, Delilah just wasn't worth that. She wasn't worth his energy, his anger, his hate. And so he wounds himself to spare her, saves her life to save his own. He lets go, and he forgives. When we discuss forgiveness, our focus is always on the perpetrator and whether they can be redeemed, when it should be on the victim, the forgiver rather than the forgivee, if you will. Forgiveness is often misunderstood as a gracious act on the victim's part, forgiving their abuser of their sins in a sort of saintly expression of kindness towards someone who hurt you. That's how I always saw it. But ask any therapist worth the £50 weekly fee, and they'll tell you it has nothing to do with absolving the victim. It's about healing yourself. Percy was obsessed with his pain, with the Briarwoods, and with revenge. He had to let go to move on. It was only weighing him down, stunting his growth as a person. He didn't forgive Delilah because she deserved it, or because she changed. The very next thing she does is taunt and try to hurt him again. But where Percy from the beginning of the season would have reacted with explosive anger to her words, and the insinuation that he had failed his family, this Percy just accepts them. They roll off of him. Forgiveness doesn't have to mean loving someone or even liking them. He just accepts her and her actions. And if that's where it ended, with Delilah surviving and maybe living out the rest of her days in a dungeon or something, that would have been fine. Great, even. But for me, the real cherry on top is what happened instead.
Cities will fall. Titans will rise. Rivers will flow with the blood of...
With the narrative so focused on Percy, it's easy to forget that Cassandra was hurt by the Briarwoods too. But she didn't stew in her anger in isolation for years. No, she was forced to spend every day with the Briarwoods. How many times do you think she had to choose forgiveness? Choose not to fight back or to let something go. 1,000 small forgivenesses for 1,000 small wounds. That adds up over time. For Cass, forgiveness isn't liberating, it's the thing that kept her trapped. It's the thing that turned her from this cheeky, troublemaking kid into someone quiet and kind of emotionally switched off.
You must have wanted to escape.
Running away was never my strong suit.
So she takes back her agency and refuses to forgive. But that's okay. Neither of the De Rolo siblings are wrong. Their trauma is different, distinct. They're going to need to heal in different ways. They each made the right choice for them, and that's what matters. To forgive or not to forgive? No one can answer that question for you. In the end, when you come to face your own Orthax, the fight will be yours alone. And if someone as angry, hateful, and scorned as... Alright, I'm actually going to have a crack at it. Lord Percival Frederickstein von Musil-Kolowski De Rolo III, let's go! Can win that fight and come out the other side smiling. Well, I think anyone can.